Today, let's look at the Binyanim system, Veyiqtol, and the directional Kametz He ending. Beginning with the Binyanim. Binyan is a Hebrew word that means building, and it's traditionally called a stem. A binyan is the pattern within which a verb inflects. Now, the name of each binyan is a mnemonic device to capture the vowel pattern of that binyan. Specifically, it's what the verb in that binyan would be if it had the root consonants pe, ayin, lamed. So notice all of these verbs here have the root consonants pe, ayin, lamed. So you have the root consonants pe, ayin, lamed with the vowel pattern of that binyan, and that became the name of that binyan. As a mnemonic device, this is really helpful. So other verbs in this binyan sound like pa'al with an a vowel pattern. For example, halach, to walk, shalach, to send, or achal, to eat. Similarly, other verbs in this binyan sound like nif'al, like nilcham. Other verbs in this binyan sound like piel, for example, bikesh. Other verbs in this binyan sound like pual, though you don't know any yet. Other verbs in this binyan sound like hitpa'el, like hithalech. Other verbs in this binyan sound like hif'il, like hishlich. And other verbs in this binyan sound like hof'al, though you don't know any yet. So the first point about this chart is the name of each binyan is a mnemonic device for what verbs in that binyan sound like. The next point to make from this chart is that the Binyanim system reflects semantic relations between words that share the same three root consonants. So what I'll do in this chart is I'll fill it up with 7 different words that all have the same three root consonants, kaf, tav, beit. Now before I begin, I should say that this example is actually taken from verbs that occur in modern Hebrew. Not all of these verbs occur in biblical Hebrew. The reason I'm doing this is because actually this example from modern Hebrew better illustrates the example, the point of this chart than any one verb family that all occur in the biblical corpus. So let's begin with pa'al. You have the three root consonants kaf, tav, beit. The verb is katav, and it means to write. Now, all pa'al verbs have a couple things in common. They have active voice. That means that the subject is the doer of the action. So if you say Paul wrote, Paul is the one who's doing the action of writing. And they describe a simple action, this being opposed to intensive or causative actions, as shown in the 2 rows below. We'll get to that in a second. Now, the binyan pa'al is often called kal, a Hebrew word that means light. The binyan is called kal, which means light, because it's the only binyan that does not add a consonant to the 3 root letters. The other 6 binyanim are actually morphologically derived from the pa'al, and they all add at least 1 consonant to the 3 root letters. All right, but I call it pa'al just to remain consistent with the mnemonic device of the names of the binyanim. Next up is nif'al, and it describes a passive action where the subject is the receiver of the verbal action, not the doer of it. Nif'al verbs are distinguished by the nun that they add at the beginning. So if katav means to write, the nif'al verb nichtav means was written. Next we have piel, its active voice, and it describes an intensive action here. The distinguishing mark of piel verbs is an initial I-type vowel. So if katav means to write, what would an intensive writing action be? The verb kitev means to engrave, where you have to inscribe it in stone, right? That's quite a bit more of an intensive action. Another example of a piel verb with intensive action related to a pa'al verb. So you know pa'al verb shavar, to break. The related PL verb with an intensive action means to shatter. What does it mean to cause the state of something? Well, you know a pa'al verb samach, to be happy. The related PL verb means to make someone happy. The other distinguishing mark of a PL verb is that they double the middle root consonant, with which the Masoretic scribes, they marked with a dagesh chazak. So that dot there in the tav is a dagesh chazak because it follows a vowel, and that counts for 2 tavs. That's the other distinguishing mark of the PL binyan. All right, pual is the passive action of a PL verb, and it's distinguished by the U-type vowel. So if kitev means to engrave, kutav means was engraved. Heat pile verbs are distinguished by their heat prefix. They have a reflexive action. That means that I do something for my own benefit. I benefit from whatever I do. They're distinguished by the heat prefix. This related verb to katav is not actually describing the reflexive action, but a reciprocal action. So if katav means to write, hit katev means to correspond. I write to you, and you reciprocate by writing back to me, to correspond. All right, hifil means to cause an action. It's distinguished by the initial he. If katav means to write, hichtiv means to dictate. So I cause you to write, you write what I say. That works. And hofal, it has the initial he prefix, but it's distinguished by the initial o type vowel. So if hichtiv means to dictate, hochtav means was dictated. So this is pretty cool, right? All 7 of these verbs are related semantically, and Hebrew is able to show that they're even morphologically related. So they show morphologically the semantic relationships between these verbs. But I want to end this section making 2 cautionary points. One is that you'll rarely ever be able to fill up this chart with verbs from the Hebrew Bible that share the same 3 root consonants. Usually you will only find 2 or 3 verbs that share the same consonantal root. But when they do share the same root, and one of them is a pa'al verb, this chart works beautifully, and you've already seen it happen. For example, you memorized ba yavo a long time ago. It means to come. There's a related hifil verb, hevi, and it means to bring. But if you think about it, if I bring something to you, I'm causing something to come to you. And in this way, the chart works. We've also seen how the chart works with the related verbs halach and hitalech, but I've already talked about that. So when one of the verbs is a pa'al verb, predicting the meaning of the verb from a derived binyan, it works really well. Now, to close, the other point is when one of those verbs is not a pa'al verb, this chart is misleading. So here's a chart with a model verb for each binyan, except for pual and hofal. The reason being there aren't any flashcards with one of these words. And that's because we're going through the book of Jonah, and there's not a single pual or hofal verb in the book of Jonah. We believe that studying these binyanim is much better suited for second year than first year Hebrew. Okay, so halach, that's our model pa'al verb. Now bikesh is our model PL verb that you've had memorized for a long time, but the meaning to look for is not an intensive or causative meaning really at all. It's just a simple word to search for something. And the reason why this chart would be misleading is because there is no related pa'al verb bakash. It doesn't exist. Similarly with hishlich, our model hifil verb, it means to throw. It doesn't mean to cause someone to throw something. And so this chart is misleading. The reason why the chart doesn't work is because there is no related pa'al verb shalach. Similarly with nilcham, it's a nifal verb, but it means to fight, which is an active action. It's not passive in any way. And here for hitalech, our model hitpail verb, the chart works because there is a related pa'al verb halach. All right, these final 2 points are much simpler. Here, veyiqtol as purpose. A veyiqtol verb is really just a yiqtol verb with a vav prefix. And when it follows a yiqtol verb, it's exactly what you would expect out of a yiqtol verb. Here I'll read number 1. Ki varech avarecha veyirash zarecha et sha'ar oevav. Because, bless, I will bless you. Here this is an adverbial infinitive. Because I will surely bless you, and your offspring will inherit the gate of his enemies. So I will surely bless you. This here is a yiqtol, and then here is a veyiqtol, where it also means will in the same sense that this means will. Number 2 shows you that when a veyiqtol follows an imperative, it indicates the purpose for that imperative. I'll read number 2. Tenu lanu maim venishte. Give to us water and we will drink means so that we may drink. The reason why the people wanted Moses to give them water was so that they would drink. Number 3 is an even clearer example that veyiqtol, following an imperative, means purpose. Adonai, aneni veyedu ha'am hazeh ki ata ha'elohim. O Yahweh, answer me, and this people will know that you are God, means the reason why the prophet wants Yahweh to answer him is so that the people will know that he alone is God. So whenever a veyiqtol verb follows an imperative, it indicates purpose, so that. And finally, the directional kametz he ending. On this page, I want to show you that kametz he, as added onto a noun, is equivalent to and interchangeable with preposition el. They both indicate direction toward something. So, to say to the house, what we're used to seeing is el habayit with preposition el, but instead of using the preposition, you could just add kametz he onto the noun itself. Habayta means to the house, and they're equivalent. They're also interchangeable. You can use one or the other, but not both. You can't say el habayta, where you have both preposition el and the directional kametz he ending. I want you to also notice that the directional ending is always unaccented. So habayta, the accent is right here. And noticing that the directional ending is always unaccented will help you not be confused by the other kametz he endings that we have been used to seeing. So the feminine singular ending on nouns is kametz he, and that is always accented. Isha means woman. Also, we've seen kametz he as an attached pronoun, which is marked by the dot, the mapik in the he. So Isha means her husband. If you have the mapik in the he, this is your attached pronoun. So it's her, ish. So both the attached pronoun and the feminine singular ending on a noun, for a noun, they both are always accented, while the directional ending is always unaccented. And finally, a couple examples. You only get the kametz he ending on singular nouns, never plural nouns. Hahar means the mountain. Hahara means to the mountain. You also get the directional ending on some adverbs. Sham means there. Shama means to there.